The legal fate of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort now lies in the hands of the jury. Both the prosecution and defense finished their closing arguments in the bank fraud trial on Wednesday. The jury will begin deliberations Thursday morning. The government claims Manafort hid at least $16 million in income from the IRS between 2010 and 2014. He allegedly disguised the money as loans and hid it in foreign bank accounts. Lawyers for Manafort vehemently deny all accusations. And joining me now from outside the courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia, is CBS News Washington correspondent Paula Reid. Paula, the prosecution presented a lot of evidence and called on dozens of witnesses. The defense called no witnesses. Did Mueller's team highlight that during closing arguments?
Well, the fact that the defense chose not to put on any defense, to call no witnesses, to present no evidence, I mean, that is significant. And what was so interesting is when the defense was presenting their closing, what we saw is that they referenced several witnesses who were not called, including a bank executive who loaned Manafort a substantial amount of money, some of the other bank officials who would have been higher up in the food chain in terms of making decisions. But the question the jury must have about that, Tanya, is, well, if they had some sort of exonerating evidence, or if the prosecution was hiding something, why didn't the defense call those witnesses? So I do think it was pretty obvious during the defense that perhaps they could have benefited from calling these witnesses, but because they didn't, we'll never know. And I think that's going to be an outstanding question for the jury.
Now, Paula, the defense focused partially on Paul Manafort's time as President Trump's campaign chairman. What can you tell us about that?
There was a brief reference to his time as the campaign chairman. One of the things that the prosecution has pointed to for a motivation for why Manafort would try to fraudulently apply for loans was they argued that his income had dried up. He was no longer working for Ukrainian politicians, no longer pulling in tens of millions of dollars. So he had an incentive, they argued, to fraudulently apply for these loans. But today we got sort of a passing reference to his work on the Trump campaign, where they said, hey, in 2016, it wasn't that he was out of work, is that he was, quote, a volunteer on a presidential campaign. As you know, this case has nothing directly to do with the president or the campaigns, but it is always significant when the president or Manafort's role in the campaign is mentioned, because it's only happened about 2 or 3 times.
Sure. Now, Paula, you have reported on many high-profile trials. Do you by now have a sense of how long it could take for the jury in this one to reach a verdict?
I don't. I know at a minimum it's going to take them a few hours. They have 18 counts to vote on, just to go around the table with 12 people, just to fill out all the paperwork and do all the procedural stuff. It's going to take them a few hours. They will get this case tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. So it would be surprising if we got anything before noon. But you really just don't know until you've been in the room with these people, until you understand their perception, any dissent, any concerns. You have no idea how long the deliberation process will take. So I'm certainly not even gonna hazard a guess.
I guess with 12 individuals that can go any which way. Now, Paula, what would a conviction mean for the broader Russia election meddling investigation going forward?
Well, in many ways, this is seen as a referendum on the legitimacy of the special counsel. We know the president and some of his allies have consistently tried to undermine this. They call it a witch hunt. But in addition to several people who have pleaded guilty, this is the first major trial that first and only prosecution that they have put on. Now, Mr. Manafort will be tried again in a few weeks on different charges in Washington, D.C. But here, a conviction would certainly bolster the perception, if nothing else, perhaps of the special counsel's investigation. It would be validation for all the work that they've been doing over the last year, all the evidence that they have gathered, and certainly an acquittal, either a partial acquittal or a complete acquittal. That would be a lot of fodder for people who want to continue to criticize the legitimacy of special counsel Mueller. If he is acquitted, I think what you're going to hear instantly is that, look, the FBI looked at Paul Manafort and his finances several years ago. They didn't charge him then. The only reason he's been charged now is because of his association with the president. A lot riding on this verdict.
All right, Paula Reid in Alexandria, Virginia. Thank you.